take really good care of your customers. And when you do that, they're going to tell their friends, they're going to read books, they're going to sing your praises, whether it's someone who's interested in your services or not.
Welcome back, Millionaire University. Are you ready to do some bootstrapping? Because today we've got a guest who knows a thing or two about building success from the ground up. We have Lauren Rampello Becotte, who is on the podcast today, sharing with us how she built a successful beauty business in the sunless tanning industry. She's going to guide us how she went from point A to point Z, the questions she had to ask, the research that she had to do, and how she prioritized putting the customer first and the effects that that had on a very successful business. Lauren gives us a framework that's very applicable to her industry, but you can apply a lot of those principles to whatever business that you're starting. And she's giving us some powerful insight into things she wished that she had known when she first started her business. So let's get into this. Class is officially in session. Hello, Lauren. Welcome to Millionaire University. So excited to have you today and share your story and really how other people can start to model the success that you've had in your business. So thanks for coming on the show and being willing to share with us.
No, well, thank you so much, Kirsten. It's so nice to be here.
You are a very seasoned entrepreneur. We have people listening who may be at the very beginning of the journey, people who are somewhere in the middle. So just give us a little snapshot.
Sure. So I started Pure Glow about a decade ago. And today, Pure Glow is a beauty and wellness business. So we focus on organic airbrush tanning as a service. And really, the reason that we got started is I really wanted to make a better product, a better service experience available and more accessible to more people. And so we know that UV rays are really dangerous. We know that a lot of what is in personal care products and skincare products is risky as well. And so I really wanted to create this path to having a great experience and enjoying the results so much that people felt a lot more comfortable, safe to be using these services and applying these products more regularly, that they weren't going to be putting their vanity before their health, and that we could also create this awesome environment that makes people, really helps them make great choices for their health and have a great experience in the process. So I've been operating 2, soon to be 3 company-owned locations in the Boston, Massachusetts area for about a decade. And then last fall, so in I think November of last year, we decided to franchise Pure Glow. So basically what that means is that we are going to be making the investment and the opportunity to own and operate a Pure Glow studio available to people across the nation.
Awesome. So is this the first entrepreneurial venture that you've had, or was there some experience leading into this?
Sure. Yeah. So I studied finance and entrepreneurship in college, but really I think a huge secret was that I had this example, which were my parents growing up. So my dad was a physician who had his own medical practice. My mom was a nurse who then turned fine jewelry store owner. And they really both were very instrumental in the creation and the operations of the jewelry store alongside the medical practice. And so I think that I grew up and I had this example of working nonstop, having a lot of passion, teaching yourself as you go, being an integral part of your community, how you take care of your employees and your customers. And that really spoke to me. I think also seeing this example of working really hard and creating your own destiny was something that was very intuitive to me. But again, I don't know if it would have been as intuitive if I didn't have that example. So I think being able to credit them and that having such a big impression on myself and both of my siblings growing up, I think is really a big part of the start. And then when I went into undergrad, I really was just interested in majoring in something that I wouldn't really learn on my own. And so that's really how I gravitated towards finance. And then as I was progressing through, I really couldn't kick this interest in entrepreneurship and management and all the aspects of business, and took a few courses in that direction to finish off. And then right out of school, I worked in more of a sort of traditional client-facing wealth management role, and very quickly excelled, enjoyed it, learned a lot about working at a Fortune 100 company and in a professional setting in that manner, but then very quickly realized I had that itch and I wanted to get started working for myself.
Yeah. So where does the beauty component come in? Was this always something that you've been passionate about as you're growing, and then you were able to find that intersection where that could become a business?
My story starts a little bit from when I was growing up. So I battled really severe acne growing up. And so at a young age, I realized that when you add the sun dries up your acne. You are left with this tan, but you're also left with really clear skin. And of course, even as early as 11, 12, I knew that sun exposure wasn't great. But when I would begin to play around and fold in these sunless tanning products, I realized that it would even my acne scarring out, it would even my skin tone out. And so overall, I just felt so much better and so much more confident. And so at a very early age, I began to equate a natural or a sunless tan with this even skin and this confidence that really was really important as a young woman growing up at these very impressionable ages. So I had begun to dabble in this sort of sunless industry for many years as a consumer. And then a few years out of school, or actually almost a year or so out of college, I became privy to how far the cosmetic chemistry side of sunless tanning innovation had come. And that is really where the business and the passion came together. And so I learned that the industry itself was able to yield these more believable looking colors when it came to achieving this suntan look. And that was really interesting to me because that was really new as someone who had been a consumer for many years. But my sort of consumer and business brain move to was, I'm not going to put something all over my skin from head to toe repetitively that isn't safe. And so at that point, when I really started thinking about this seriously, I decided to look into what are in these products, how does this innovation work, and is there a way to bring this to market in a really safe way? And I was quite surprised. And really what I had learned initially is that there are a lot of certified organic and natural ingredients that are very safe and effective. And when you combine those with some of these safe but synthetic ingredients that work really well, you can achieve a great result in a really safe way with safe ingredients. And so that's really where Pure Glow as it is today came to be.
Awesome. So let's talk about the business building side of that, because you not necessarily stumble, very intentionally discover the science of this and you have a passion for it. It's an interest, something that you've personally experienced. So where did it begin? Because I know that you're a founder of the company before it became an option to franchise. Can we talk a little bit about that and how you built it and what were some of those things that you had to do to turn it into a successful company to where it is right now?
Sure. So I think at an early age, I was someone who has always been very ambitious, always worked very hard. I knew whether I was working for someone else or working for myself, I was going to work just as hard. So it's that ethos of it makes a little bit more sense to work for myself so that hopefully at the end of the day, there's value building and all those good things. You're getting a little bit more out of it. Additionally, I was able to teach myself self-discipline and time management. I might not be the most organized person on the planet, but you begin to figure out what are the ways in which I need to grow and skills to obtain to be able to venture out completely on my own. And so I think I had identified in myself that I had a lot of these leadership qualities, this ambition, this work ethic, and I could think strategically about how to start something from the ground up. And again, I think that entrepreneurship and business ownership and finding success in business is incredibly achievable, which is why I love Millionaire University and what you guys are doing. And this is something that I certainly encourage people who are interested in going to business for themselves is you really just need to sit down and think, what do I want to accomplish? And what are the ways that I can go about doing this? And I was really creating the structure in this game plan for quite some time as I was self-educating. So it took a long time for me to learn a lot about the industry, to learn a lot about what really mattered to me, to learn about the cosmetic chemistry side of things, so to learn about clinical studies and what data existed around what is safe, what isn't safe, learning about formulating, learning about working with a chemist and manufacturing and bringing things to market, learning about creating a service experience. Do you go brick and mortar or do you explore a more less traditional sort of real estate strategy? And so I really think that it just starts with identifying your problem and then really looking at all the ways in which you can go about it. And then at some point you just have to start. And I'm a big believer in learning by doing. And so as soon as you begin to put something in place, all of that feedback that you get is feedback that should be taken and should support any sort of decision pivots and things like that. When I first started the business, I had a minimal capital and wanted to be mindful of how much risk I was taking on. And so I decided to lay out a feasibility analysis strategy. And so what that was is I isolated one thing to start. And that thing was setting out to create an experience and to talk about safe and organic ingredients and to find out, is there a demand for safer, what I think are, better, so also high quality ingredients? And then is there an appetite for an elevated delivery of this service? And so I really focused on, that was what I was set out to accomplish, took this bite-sized piece and created a plan about how I would bring that to market as the foundation for what would then become Pure Glow. And so as soon as I did that, I learned a lot about what people did care about, what people's appetite was for spending, what people's appetite was for frequency, what were their obstacles to getting these services and getting them more regularly. And so it was really this tremendous almost 12 months of learning and being able to shift and hone in on what do people really need and what really aligns with my bigger vision for making a healthier, better alternative available.
You talked about a lot of elements towards building a successful business. And so I made note of some of them because I want to dive into those a little bit more and just point out how powerful it is, even the last few things that you said, with just really starting and then continuing to get feedback, finding demand. There was so much learning that had to go into starting this business. And I'm curious, did you decide to go the brick and mortar route? We talk about you have locations, so obviously that's true. Did you start right away with locations, or did you start with virtual sales of the product first and then expand out to services?
So from Pure Glow's perspective, so much of the magic of Pure Glow and what I set out to build is creating that human connection. And so I think that there are lots of different ways to do it, but the way that I really wanted to start is we really wanted to be in person. And I understand that real estate is such an important thing. I did not want to rush into it. I wanted to learn more about where we need to be, what we would need, what we would be able to spend once we got to that point. So I rolled out initially a concierge model. And so the way that looked is I put together a mobile on the road model, and we would travel, myself and a small team would travel to individuals' homes, you travel to their offices, meeting places, a variety of different ways to meet them. And then we would perform the services on site, on location. And so that was really where we started. So I was not committed to a long-term lease, to all these fixed expenses. And truly what I found from that experience was that not only were a lot of the finer details and points for what was important to me and as the foundation of this business, I found that validation from clients very quickly, but also the word of mouth grew very quickly. And so that allowed me and afforded myself and the team to begin to look for brick and mortar spaces. Boston is a very old town. There is no straight layout. It is not a grid. So traveling around the city of Boston has a tremendous amount of challenges, but a different metro would have been a whole different experience. Before long, because our volume and our demand was growing so much, that also was great support for getting into a centralized location, be able to see more customers, to be able to control the experience a little bit better and to begin to grow and scale.
So I'm curious, and I love that. I love hearing that you started, I want to say simple, but not really simple. It was still a lot of work to do that concierge service. Was there something that already existed like that? I'm just trying to find where we came in to where were you seeing that this was an in-demand market? Was anybody else doing this, or were you origination of even the concept? Because I know, sunless tanning is not a new concept, but what about what you did differentiated you to where you were able to grow that quickly? And where did you step into the marketplace and maybe do something somebody else wasn't doing, or have a messaging that was helping you stand out?
Sure. So I think, I believe that there is a tremendous amount that I did differently and that we continue to do differently today that really allow us to stand out, have allowed us to grow as rapidly as we have grown, and to do that with overall quite a minimal marketing budget. Instead of looking to see what other people were doing or taking cues from others, I really built everything from scratch, entirely from a strategic standpoint. What do I perceive as the need? What is the best way? What is the most innovative, thoughtful, intentional way of going about delivering the service, creating the best product, creating the best experience from start to finish? And so I think that when there are more players out in the market, it can be helpful. You can certainly learn from what other people are doing and build off it and all of these things. I will say I cannot imagine that we were the first concierge model in a major city, but there definitely were not a lot of competitors doing what we were doing. Today, there are definitely more, but I still think that the way in which the service was delivered, the way in which the whole company was structured, the way in which customers and clients interfaced with us was really thoughtful from the very beginning. So we made a really frictionless process to booking, frictionless process to move through, rebook, get the products you need, get the information that you need, in terms of understanding what your options were. Really, all of these steps were very well thought through so that when we actually got in front of the customer, it was a tremendous sort of wow, on delight. And then from there, they would be a loyal customer and move from there. To this day, nearly October will be 10 years. We still have customers that we see regularly that were regular customers then. So it's the sort of recipe works. We've continued to build on the recipe and the approach, but I think that there is a tremendous advantage to planning and creating with your head down and being less focused on what others are doing or the way that things have been done before. So even on the franchise side of the business now, we've recruited this, world-class team of incredible experienced professionals with successful companies to help build and grow and support our franchisees now on the franchise side. And I still, as incredible experiences they have, I still will really encourage them to not put so much weight on what has been done in the past, but how would you like to get it done? What is a better way to get it done? What is the best way to get it done? If you were the consumer, what would be easy for you? What would make your life better and make you able to seek the service more often? And so I think that it's really important to challenge yourself to think for yourself and not place as much weight on what others are doing.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's really powerful. You're a consumer of your own products. And even before you had such an expansive business, this is something that you were interested in. So it's easy to get inside the mind of the buyer. And I think in many businesses, this is probably one of the most important things in understanding your marketing, your messaging, and positioning is just what does the buyer want? What does the consumer want? How can we simplify? And there's value in looking at what's out there just to know competitive advantage. But most of the conversion and most of the value is going to come from knowing what kind of experience they're looking for. So you mentioned you didn't do a lot by way of marketing, but I'm curious, what was the marketing, especially 10 years ago? Because the landscape of marketing is
totally
changed.
different.
Yeah.
Totally different. So what I would say was what was probably the most successful marketing strategy and is still a very successful strategy for us today is investing in search engine optimization. And so if you're starting out, so I bootstrapped the business for almost the first decade. And so when you're starting out and anything you're making, all your profits, you're reinvesting, you're just trying to grow the business, you don't have a huge pile of cash and all these different marketing tactics. There's a lot that you can do in a cost-effective way and that you can do yourself and you can teach your team to do that are really beneficial. And so we doubled down on and really focused on search engine optimization. And so that was focusing on what information is on our website. How is the website laid out? How is it written? What keywords are important? How are we going to tell Google, Bing or whoever it is, but predominantly Google, who we are and who we need to get in front of? And then from there, continuing to optimize it. I am a big believer in our team today, our home office team are big believers in keeping things as simple and straightforward as possible. So for us, we don't offer a lot of services. We focus only on our signature service, which is our airbrush tanning service, and we speak directly to the customer. So there's no confusion about what we are and how we're different. And we really focus on what we do well and what they can expect. And I know for sure that was a really big driver in getting us in front of the right people with little to no spend early on. We also have the luxury of being a client-facing business. And so I think that probably the second strategy or investment that we made is to take really good care of your customers. And when you do that, they're going to tell their friends, they're going to rebook, they're going to sing your praises, whether it's someone who's interested in your services or not. We had a lot of people learn about our services that weren't actually clients, that were nominating us for awards, that were referring us to other industry experts, and had come to find out they hadn't even experienced the service themselves, but they had friends or colleagues or that did, and that they trusted their opinion and their feedback. And so I think that it's a great reminder that the customer needs to come first, and that there is a return on the investment of how you take care of them in that interaction. And remember too, yes, we are very much direct to the customer as a client-facing business, but every customer interaction is an opportunity to tell the customer who you are and what working with you is going to be like. So whether that's landing on your website, landing on your Instagram page, getting back to an email, to a DM, whatever that might be, in a timely manner, responding really thoroughly so that the email thread or the text thread does not need to continue, but they get the information that they need quickly and efficiently, making their booking process or whatever that might be seamless. And so there are so many opportunities to win that customer and tell them who you are and what working with you is going to be like.
That's powerful. There's truly no better investment than word of mouth marketing. And I don't care what you say with social media. Even social media has that component of word of mouth marketing. When people are sharing you in any capacity, that is the best type of investment that you can make into your business and growth. And I love that you tapped into SEO as well, search engine optimization. It's such another powerful way to get in front of the right people, especially I'm sure when you do develop the brick and mortar model, because you don't just want searchability on address, you want searchability on service. So can we talk about the scaling and what that looked like? Because you mentioned you bootstrapped this really for almost the first 10 years, and where the transition started to come even from that concierge model to brick and mortar, and then what that looked like when you started with one location and then multiple. And essentially, this is a multi-tiered question. What took you into the franchisor model?
I think that very quickly, we saw the demand grow very quickly with the concierge model. So there was a lot of validation, but also as a new concept, a first-time founder, but it gave me more encouragement that I could open and support a brick and mortar location. So that was really the impetus to begin looking. Again, for anyone listening who's considering brick and mortar, signing a lease and jumping into brick and mortar is really not something that you want to move forward with without really thinking about, is this the right fit for your business? What does the competitive landscape look like? And do I really need to incur this expense to accomplish what my goal is? And that was something I thought a lot about. And it became very apparent to me that we are in an experienced, focused business, and we'll be able to see a higher volume of people on the road. We could see about one person an hour. In the studio, we're able to see 3 people an hour, which is a really important sort of economies of scale. And so as such, I figured out what my parameters were: size, expense, location, etc. And I actually polled all of our customers up until that point and asked them, hey, we're interested in opening a brick and mortar location. Where do you want us? And we received, the overwhelming response was Back Bay in Boston. And that was really helpful, and really surveying and talking and asking directly, direct questions to our clients over the years has been such a tremendous sort of way that I've made big decisions, and it has guided the direction of the company. And so that's something I really strongly encourage that people don't shy away from doing. So from there, it took about 9 months to find the right space, lock down the lease, and begin to open. Again, at that point, we had a small team on the road. And so for a period of time, we were on the road and we had a small team in studio. As time went on, the studio the brick and mortar experience was a tremendous success. And as we grew, again, small company, bootstrapped, you cannot invest anywhere. You have to be really thoughtful and strategic about where you invest. And so I decided to invest in growing the studio team rather than growing the concierge team. As time went on, I decided that there were a lot of challenges to the concierge business, a lot of which were related to sort of insurance and liability. The training was a lot more robust and took a lot longer. In Boston specifically, a lot of our potential staffing and employee pool did not have cars, so that became a lot more difficult. Public transportation isn't always reliable. So operationally, I made a decision to invest in the brick and mortar business. And then from there, again, similarly, it became very clear very quickly that this was a winning concept, a winning model, and that this could support multiple brick and mortar locations with actually a larger footprint. From there, it just really became what was my appetite for risk, what was my appetite for opening a second location, getting the capital, where was that capital going to come from? And then again, still solo founder, how was I going to split my time between multiple locations and things like that? So it was really a personal decision. It took me many years to figure out if and how I wanted to scale. I was very hesitant to raise and take on institutional outside capital. I didn't want to give up a lot of control. I have a very strong vision and I wanted to make sure that vision is not derailed. And so that was a really important consideration. And pandemic happened. Of course, that was a number of years that we were also, along with a lot of other service and in-person businesses, were lost time. We got out of the pandemic and really realized that I'm ready to grow this business. And so I had been nurturing some key relationships, some people that I really wanted to bring on and help me do this. And the timing became right. And I was able to be introduced to a lead investor who thought very similarly, was willing to allow me to maintain control and operate and execute on the vision. And it was really the perfect recipe to be able to shepherd us into this next stage of growth, which was to be able to offer this incredible business opportunity to other leaders and entrepreneurs who would like to open their own beauty and wellness business, airbrush tanning studio.
Amazing. I love that you mentioned this too. This took years, and this was an intentional decision on whether even to scale the business. It wasn't just, you didn't start out with this roadmap day one of we're going to have a franchise in 10 years. It was really just a little bit at a time, seeing growth, seeing opportunity, and just continuing to ride the wave, but being intentional with that. So I think that's important. Even as an entrepreneur, when you're starting a business, I think we have a tendency to think we have to have everything figured out from the very beginning, and just enjoying the journey and allowing it to evolve as it needs to is so much more fun than putting that pressure on yourself of, we can have the dream, we can have the vision, the big goal. Maybe even if the goal is a multi-7-figure business, you're going to be a founder of a Fortune 500, 100, whatever it may be, but not trying to determine how and the timing of every single step, because none of us could have foreseen COVID. Didn't even think about how that probably impacted your scaling and growth for that period of time too. So let's talk a little bit about now what it's like for you as that founder who's put all this effort into building this business, a whole company, and what it's been like to transition where now you have other people coming on and continuing that vision and really taking it forward.
I would love to answer that. And it's really been a dream come true to be able to bring on this really experienced team. I am learning and will continue to learn a tremendous amount from them, and to be able to really collaborate and accomplish a lot more in a shorter period of time is, really just everything a founder could ever want and more. And so appreciative of where we are now and that opportunity and being able to have that. But I do want to just comment on your last point, because I think that for this audience, regardless of what stage in business you are, it is so important. I think that for many years, it was always, you're so ambitious, you want to accomplish everything overnight, you're working so hard. And you really don't sit back and sort of enjoy the journey, appreciate your accomplishments. It's so easy to just be forward thinking all the time. But I think that it's really important to celebrate your wins, pat yourself on the back, think about all the little accomplishments, because that is the journey and life is short. And I think it's really important. And I think that notoriously entrepreneurs are not good at that because we're so forward thinking and we're so motivated. But I already give myself advice previously, I would say really try to do that more. And so that's something that I'm actively really making an effort to do more of. I think that, again, similarly, is you're learning so much as you go along. All of the challenges and ways that you need to figure out and work around something, like all the failures, you're learning from all of those things. And if nothing else, you're getting the education of a lifetime. And that is one of the reasons I am just such a huge promoter. And if you're cut out for it and you're interested in working for yourself and when starting something from scratch, it's such a tremendous education you cannot get in business school. And it really sounds to me like that's a lot of what Justin and Tara really set out to roll into Millionaire University. And I really love that and think that's really powerful. Don't take for granted that the journey is part of it. You are learning a lot and there's never wasted time and full flat out failures because you're learning so much at such a rapid pace and the success will come in time. I think too, for a lot of people, I think that they just naturally assume it's going to take all this time for me to make money. Pure Glow was profitable from the very beginning. We are fortunate to have a very profitable business concept and overall a very straightforward, simple to operate business, which is why it is so ripe for scaling vis-a-vis franchising. And so I think that try to enjoy the journey, try to embrace the failures, but also really try to remember that there is really no wasted time and that the goal should not be an overnight success. The goal should be the learning that you're making some money, you're making a return on your investment, and that you're investing in yourself, your own happiness, right? Life is short. Thank you for letting me circle back and harp a little bit on something I wish with my younger self.
It's good. It's good, valuable lessons every entrepreneur needs to hear. Because I think especially if you're consuming podcasts like this, it can be really easy to hear success story after success story. And we refer to the work, we refer to the effort that has to go into it. But it can start to feel like it's even, I just want to clarify something too. Even when you hear like I had to bootstrap and you have to put money back into the business, even that, like the work, the effort can start to feel so overwhelming where it's like building a business is hard. I don't know if it's worth it. How long is it going to take me to make money? So can you clarify for me, because this is something I genuinely am curious about. When you're bootstrapped and you are reinvesting, I think this requires a ton of discipline, but you also mentioned that you're profitable from the beginning. And so what did it look like for you to where you were actually able to generate a personal income from the business? How long did that take? And then maybe that can segue us even into somebody who might be interested in becoming a franchisee and what that looks like when you're starting with something that's already a little bit established, what you can expect in terms of revenue.
I think that it's really a personal choice about how there are lots of different ways to start out. So I'll share a little bit about what I chose to do. When I decided to go off on my own entirely full time, so I had been working on the business for I think it was like 8 or 9 months before I actually dedicated myself full time to Pure Glow. At that point, when I decided to make that full time leap, I, really asked myself, okay, what are my regular expenses? How much do I need to live? What do I have in the bank? How long can I go without taking money from the business or paying myself any income? And so I made that calculation. In addition to that, I also created this superficial timeline for myself. And that was, you are going to work as hard and as smart to get this business off the ground in a period of time. And if you have not made enough progress in 1 year, it's probably time to think about going back to the corporate world or to pursue something different. So I think that giving yourself a hard and fast deadline is also a really disciplined and a really more practical way of saying, I need to accomplish something by X. And if I haven't, I might need to reevaluate, because we're all adults, right? Where no one is supporting us by ourselves. And I know, sure, everyone's situation is a little bit different, but at the time I was very young, early 20s, and I was unmarried. I was not supported by anyone but myself. So I had to make a decision about how long I could go for unpaid. Additionally, I set aside a certain amount of my savings to put towards the business. And what was nice is that, yes, we were profitable from quite early on, but I made a point of not paying myself for as long as I felt was reasonably possible. And so I believe I think it was just under a year. And of course, that's a personal choice. That's going to be different for everyone. And so that was a decision that I made. And then once I got to a point where I had more predictable income coming in, I knew the cadence of filling the schedule and knew the ways in which revenue was made. I understood what all of my operating costs looked like. Then I was able to plan and budget a little bit better. From there, when I first started paying myself, it was still quite meager. It was really, what do you really need to not fully change your lifestyle? Because of course, I had a pretty significant lifestyle change initially. There's always trade-offs, but to not make me feel too constrained, with the goal that everything above and beyond that would be reinvested in the business. And so I want to say that I paid myself something quite small, like maybe 45,000 to begin. And then maybe the next year it jumped to closer to 60, something like that. But again, that choice is really dependent on, are you married? Is there dual income? What does your nest egg look like? Do you have a loan, or did you seek a loan from the bank? Are you getting a loan from friends and family? Right? There's so many different ways to craft that. But for me, I was really only relying on myself, and especially to start. And then from there, just as my comfort, as I knew what the business needed, I slowly began to pay myself a little bit more. But largely, I would say that for at least 60% of what I earned each year was reinvested in the business for the first 3 to 4 years. And then we got to a place where we were doing very well financially. And then I was able to just set aside maybe more 40% on a given year, but also knowing that as an individual entrepreneur, my income can be variable. Every year could look different. There was no guarantee that there wasn't going to be some catastrophic pandemic or something major that could really derail my ability to operate the business. And so I think that when paying yourself and making these decisions about what your take-home pay should look like, or how much you're paying your employees, how much you're investing in a variety of things, there's really no hard and fast rule. It just, again, comes down to planning. But I think that everyone's situation is going to be different. And again, there are a lot of considerations in terms of what income might you need, what income might you want, and what sort of reinvestment do you really see being needed to grow the business in the way in which you want to grow it.
I am so grateful for that breakdown, because I think it's very personal. Like you said, you have to weigh that on your need, your situation, and all those things. But it's something I haven't, to the extent that you have founded a business, bootstrapped a business. I have done a lot of stepping in and helping other people to sell what they're selling and created more of the digital side. So it's not a direction I've had to go. And I've always been curious what that looks like, because it's always felt like this. You have to be poor for 10 years and you're not making any money and it's all going back in the business. So to hear that there's a variety and there's so many different ways to approach it is really, I think, encouraging for me and probably for everybody listening, that it can be personal and it can be customized to what your needs are.
There's no defined timeline of when you'll be able to pay yourself or when you won't. And I think that's the beauty of entrepreneurship, is it's really up to you.
Yeah.
You make it happen or you don't. And there's risk involved, but everyone's situation is going to be a little bit different. But there's nothing to say that you won't be able to support yourself right from the beginning.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about the franchise option, because people do have this. What have you seen being a marker of success, I guess, when people do decide to come in? What types of people are choosing a franchise? Are most of them already intrigued by the product line? Have you had any people who have gone customers turned franchisors? What does that look like?
Yeah. So I have been very intrigued by the franchise model for many years. And one of the big reasons that I am so intrigued is that doing every single thing yourself, building a business from scratch, from the ground level, is a tremendous amount of work. It's very costly. You make costly mistakes. You learn the hard way. You teach yourself a tremendous amount along the way. It's very slow. You can only learn so much and teach yourself much in so much time. And so the beauty of investing in a franchise as a franchisee is that if you have a great franchisor, which is really what Pure Glow is and aspires to be. We're just emerging, so we're just getting started, but we have a really great foundation and tremendous amount of operating experience to lean on. Is we've made the mistakes. We've taken risks. We learned what works, what doesn't work. We've learned intimately who our customer is, how we're different, our positioning in the market, where we want to grow. We have a tremendous amount of insights that now a franchisee can come in and leverage. So there are a lot of things that are advantageous. So when you're buying a business like a franchise, your risk of failure from the beginning is massively reduced because ideally your franchisor has a proven concept. And not only are they going to deliver that proven concept to you sort of ideally on a silver platter, but they're going to lock arms with you and they're going to support you with every step in the process. So from the moment you come into the brand, learn about the brand, we're going to walk you through and help you do your full due diligence so you can figure out, is this a good fit for you? Similarly, we're going to learn about you and figure out, are you a good fit for this organization, our culture, our goals? Do your skills align with what we think it takes to be a really successful franchise partner? But it really doesn't stop there. And from there, we're going to really help you with this successful open. We're going to help you with that really successful first 8-9 months. We're going to help you understand when is the time to open location number 2, location number 3, if that's something that you want. And all the while, we're going to be focusing on how to support you from a sales and marketing perspective, how to support you from a operational perspective. We're going to teach you how to be a business owner. We have all the support, depending on what you need. And so it's a really fantastic structure. But probably one of the best things to our point earlier that we were talking about is when you come into a proven concept that is going to support you every step of the way, you're poised to hit the ground running. So your open is going to be 6, 8, 10 times more successful, profitable than Lauren's open in 2000 on her own when she was just starting out, figuring out how to do this marketing thing, where to invest money, how to train, how to recruit, all of those things. So it's really this incredibly accelerated way of hitting the ground running. You're going to learn a ton. You're going to work tremendously hard, but a lot of that sort of initial risk is removed. And for someone who's a little bit more entrepreneurial, the opportunity to get in on the ground level with an emerging franchisor like ourselves or anyone else who's in the stage that we are there's a tremendous opportunity that you don't get when you enter into a franchise organization that is already at 50 units, 100 units, 300 units. There are definitely different stages to franchisors and how they grow. And so it's really a unique and very entrepreneurial opportunity to join an organization like ours as a franchisee when we're starting out and we have just about 10 or so committed units nationwide.
Amazing. And then I would assume, we've talked a little bit about this opportunity for franchising here on the podcast, and I think it would be pretty intriguing even to hear, and we don't have to get into specific numbers necessarily, but even for you, we touched on this a little bit, why franchisor? Like, why franchise the business versus just open multiple locations on your own? What was the motivation there? And even what is the profitability doing that versus, like I said, opening those locations across the nation for yourself?
Sure. The really important way to understand, do you want to grow what we call company owned, which is really opening multiple units yourself that are all owned by one company? Or do you want to grow the franchise route? And keep in mind that there are plenty more routes to scaling that are outside of those two, but those two are often compared because there is a lot in common. And so the way that we like to think about it is you either determine that you want to be an operating business or you want to be a marketing business. And so an operating business means that you really want to focus on you want to employ and train and develop and engage a huge amount of people, because the success of your organization, all of your individual units, how they're supported on a regional basis, how they're supported on a national basis, is really on how successful are the operators in all of these units. When you decide to grow via franchising, you are investing in really the marketing and the support system, and your owners are really they're bringing the operating know-how. They're the ones who are taking great care of their team. They're managing the operations within the four walls of their unit. You're teaching them how to do that. You're supporting in that, but that's really their responsibility. That is not the franchisor's responsibility. Whereas if you have a company owned strategy, that is an internal focus and strategy. So for me, I much prefer, and our internal team really preferred to go the franchise route, because we believe that there are incredible people like myself that have a passion for operating, have a passion for people, have a passion for creating these incredible jobs in your community, taking great care of your clients, elevating that experience, and doing it in a way that really aligns with your values, whether that be around health, fitness, lifestyle, whatever that might be. To those people are able to purchase, invest in this business and run it on their terms. And that's really the opportunity, and they bring so much passion to their team, passion to their clients. To me, it's ripe for so much more connection. Whereas when you go into a company-owned store, you can absolutely have a wonderful experience, but that sort of passion and that care and consideration is really not the same in an operating business, because that employee is not really invested in the same way. They're not invested in the success of that particular unit or that region or that group of units in the same way that a true owner investor is. And so by franchising, you're allowing somebody to invest and have real ownership in these units. And so it's really just a totally different sort of proposition. And for me as the founder and creator, I find that growing the franchise route is just so much more fulfilling to me. It really fills my cup. It fills my heart. And to me, that is a better use of my time and is something that feels really worthy of getting up in the morning.
I feel like the consistent thread there too is in the service of the customer, right? Like you want to continue that investment because you know it's going to lead to a better quality experience for the customer. Of course, it's going to reflect better for you as a founder and as the name of the company, you want it to be represented well. But at the end of the day, that's the whole reason you've had the success, is because it's been customer focused, client focused. And so if you can ensure that same consistency and continuity is provided, then you're going to feel a lot stronger about the continuation of your business versus just having a ton of locations that you can't personally visit regularly and manage. And it just multiplies you in a more intentional way. So that's really cool to hear from the perspective of somebody who is a franchisor and what the motivation was behind that. So thanks for giving us that insight as well.
Thank you. And to your question earlier too about who are we attracting, who is a good fit, who are we finding a lot of success and who's coming to Pure Glow. And we're seeing a lot of individuals from the beauty industry. We're seeing a lot of individuals that share a passion for health and wellness and really want to make a difference with their time and want to make safer, higher quality offerings available in their community. And so we're seeing a lot of success specifically from the beauty industry, from the service industry, which is really exciting. And then we're certainly seeing tangentially a lot of this passion for retail and that sort of at-home of experience on the product side as well. But certainly the thread is really people who understand the importance and feel really fulfilled by creating an awesome experience, connecting with people, and learning that success in business is really attracting people who share your belief system, right? That's really what is going to get you to the next level. Your customers are the people who believe what you believe. And so we are being really intentional about bringing operating partners, franchisees into our system that really strongly believe what we believe. And a lot of that has to do with how you run the business, how you grow the business, how you take care of your people internally, as well as how you show up in your client community, but as well as your greater community.
Amazing. Okay, so if people are interested in continuing to learn from you, following the journey of Pure Glow, even interested in franchising one of your locations, where can they go to find you?
Sure. So to connect with me directly, the best place would be either LinkedIn. So it's Lauren Rampello Becotte, or directly on Instagram. My handle is Lauren R. Becotte. If you'd like to learn more about our franchise opportunity or our customer facing opportunity, you can visit us at pureglow.com. We are opening in about 7 new markets over the next 8 months. So please look out for us. We will be coming to a location near you. And then if you would like to learn about more details about, is our franchise opportunity a fit for you? Is it something you'd like to learn more about, or even think about modeling for your own business? You can visit us at pureglow.com/franchising.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Lauren, for coming on. And you've given us so much value, so much information with your journey and the things that you've learned to help us amplify all of our efforts as well. So thanks again for coming on and sharing. It's been great talking with you.
So wonderful talking with you, Kirsten. Thank you for having me, and best of luck to everyone listening.
Thank you.
Thank you so much again to Lauren and our other show sponsors for today's episode. We love hearing about all of the different innovative ways that we can take curiosity and passion and turn it into a profitable business. And that's really our aim here on MU, is to help you start to see that all around you are problems and things that need solving, and you have a unique capability to do that. Lauren is a walking and talking example of something that all of us have the capacity to do, and I'm so grateful to her for coming on and giving us some insight into what it looks like to bootstrap a business and start from the ground up and build success on your terms. Thank you so much, you guys, for listening to today's episode. Go check out all of our resources in the show notes and be sure to connect with Lauren as well. And we'll see you guys on the next episode. Class dismissed.